Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, July 16th, 2024 Town Council meeting. Councilor Gracie.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to come out of non-public.
Second.
Okay, is motion to come out of non-public in a second on the motion. Councilor Chiarichello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Gracie.
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0.
All right, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to seal the minutes because they would affect the adverse reputation of any person other than a member of the board.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to seal the minutes. On the motion, Councilor Chiarichello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Gracie.
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
With a possible change, did Councilor Granessi say indefinitely?
He did.
I did? Okay, I wasn't sure.
Just want to make sure he said indefinitely.
I may have just assumed it, but I heard it.
I don't know,
yes,
he
okay.
wasn't sure either.
If not, indefinitely.
And
Okay,
chair
cool.
votes yes, then motion passes 6-0 as well. We'll do roll call. Well, we kind of just did roll call, but we'll do it again. Councilor Chiarichello?
Good evening.
Councilor Webb?
Good evening.
Councilor Flood?
Hello.
Councilor Gracie?
Good evening.
Councilor McEachern?
I'm still here.
Has Councilor Foot joined?
Not as of yet, Madam Chair.
I know Councilor Foot was not sure if he was going to be able to call in or not. He was sorry to miss this evening, and good evening from the chair. Councilor Webb, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the
Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. Apologize for our tight space this evening. We're doing some updates and work around the building, so we're a little tight this evening. Before we go into public forum, I want to just move things a little out of order. We have our newest police officer to introduce this evening, so I'm going to invite the chief up to do that.
Oh, my God, look at him.
He's trained to.
Only you, Dick.
Good evening, Council. I wanted to, as you know, we embarked upon a canine program this past year, and in early July, Officer Colin Kennedy and his partner Latios completed their 14-week canine patrol training academy at Boston Police Academy. I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce you to Latios and Officer Kennedy. Go ahead. Show them what you need to do.
I just want to thank you guys for having me. I know we spoke the other day at Starbucks actually when I saw you, but I just want to say thank you everybody here for the opportunity. This was a lifelong dream for me to be a canine handler. So like I said, I just want to say thank you to everybody. For the residents, this was a tool that I think everyone's going to be thankful to have. Canines are a good location tool for searching, and I just can't get I can't say it enough how excited I am to work for you guys, and I know he's excited. Obviously, you can tell he's got a lot of drive, and that's what he was bred for. So we're looking forward to working, and hopefully a long, sustained career. So I can do some quick obedience. I know this room is a little out of whack right now, and I don't want to, do anything crazy. But at the academy, we did a lot of obedience, off and on leash. The certification was all off leash, but just if anybody can see over there, if you can't, let me know. Just quick stuff here, so we do hand motions, no hand motions. If I don't do one, dots. So it's Dutch, German. This is his reward, so this is what he wants to work for. I can do a hand motion like this, he knows. If I don't say anything, he still does, and it will reward him. We can come to the side right here, he already knows. And that's his reward. So, pretty simple. A lot of work was put into it, but he had a good foundation. I know this could be televised. I want to say thank you to Fox Hill and Amesbury. He was imported from Italy, Ibex Kennel in Italy. His two brothers are also in the States now, so I don't know if we're going to be getting one of his brothers, but they did a phenomenal job with the foundation of him, and I think we just got really lucky with the dog that we selected.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
and he's a worker, so.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So he hit the road last Tuesday, a week ago today, for his first shift. Within hours, he was called into action, and he had a track. Local sheriff's unit had a vehicle pursuit right on the town line, Derry-Auburn town line, and they were in Derry for a bit, but the suspect ended up dumping the vehicle in the backyard of a home and went out on foot, and Latios was pressed into service and went on a track. One of our other patrol officers intercepted the individual walking down the power lines before the K-9 could track to that person, and we apprehended the individual. But within hours of patrol use, he was actually pressed into service, and he did a subsequent article search because we thought that the suspect might have dropped some property or thrown some property, discarded some property along the way.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, does the council care to have a picture taken? We might be able to assemble you behind the
I'm gonna say
team.
who's afraid of dogs right now?
I'm not afraid.
Yes, I
We
would
could
love
do
to
that real quick?
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna, I was gonna ask,
If we were gonna save
what can I say?
questions later when the
Yeah.
comes back up,
Yeah, wherever you want to go.
Where would you prefer us?
I can stand in the center, in the middle, have you guys behind me if that works.
Stand here?
Want us to stand behind?
Total separation?
Yeah, I mean, he has to be suspicious of
Yeah, yeah.
everyone, and I don't want him
I get
to,
it. Okay.
I don't wanna put him in a bad
Well, we don't want him to nip any of us.
come on in.
So used to being around all the canines.
I don't know how we can do this.
If you go up high,
can get him up there.
You do? I know it's loud.
No, it's a little awkward.
We have to somehow move, or what would you like?
See, he wants his reward.
Colin, do you want to slide just off? So that Brian, we can get Brian in there. Okay. Let's take a bunch. That's good. We got the angle.
Is that better over there, Owen?
Great. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank the council for your support. Without your support, obviously, this wouldn't have happened. So thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Thank you for bringing him in.
Hide the cookies. Are
He's awesome looking.
I got to see him do a little search and rescue, the other day behind the police station, and he's pretty impressive. Yeah, so Counselor Foot and I stopped by, and they hid something in the
awesome.
grass, and then had him come out and find it, and it was pretty impressive. He's doing a good job. Yeah. All right, we will move on to public forum. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to open public forum.
so moved. Second.
Motion to open public forum in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, public forum is now open. You can come up. Just remember to please state your name and address for the record.
Ernest St. Pierre, Sunset Ave, Derry. Good evening, councilors. Couple of things I just wanted to go over. First of all, if you haven't been through Sunset Ave in the past 4 weeks, please take a moment and try driving through there. The road's closed because of the construction going on the bridge. I know it impedes a lot of the neighbors. It's right in my dooryard where it's all happening, but I'm glad it's happening because I'm not gonna have to worry about floods no more. We got flooded out on the Mother's Day flood years ago, and because of the bad culverts. And if you could have seen them culverts when they pulled the pipes out, they was all rotted out and everything like that. This is a well-needed job. And the contract crew that's doing it are excellent. They've been very obliging and doing a great job. The next thing I wanted to talk about, and I guess we're going to hear a little bit about it from the town administrator tonight, just looking at some of the numbers, I'm pretty excited. I hope you guys keep me excited when it comes time to come up with a little bit of a piece of the pie for the veterans in town. But it looks like we got some money left over from the budgets and stuff like that, and possibly the revenues are going to be up too. So if you can do something for us, we really, really appreciate it. And that's basically it. Thank you.
Before I speak, can I pass out some items to the counselors for review? It's just written of what I'm gonna say.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emery Stevens, Warner Hill Road, and today I've come before the council to propose a ceasefire resolution, which you all have paper copies of that I am now going to read. Okay. Whereas the town of Derry recognizes the long history of conflict between the states of Palestine and Israel and the significance of the attack by Hamas and other terrorist groups on October 7th, 2023, which resulted in the deaths of over 1,200 Israelis and the injury of many more, and whereas the town of Derry recognizes that in response to that event, the Israeli government, backed by the U.S. military funded by our citizens' tax dollars, launched a disproportionate and indiscriminate siege and assault on 2.2 million inhabitants with U.S. weaponry that has resulted in at least 40,000 innocent lives to be lost, half of which are women and children, forcibly relocated the majority of the population, denied to them access to humanitarian aid, clean food and water, sanitization, healthcare, as well as unnecessarily destroyed innumerable amounts of civilian infrastructure. And whereas the town of Derry recognizes that all humans have a right to live peacefully and happily regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, ancestry, gender, national or social origin, and that the murder of innocents must always be publicly condemned whenever committed, and whereas a rise in hate and bigotry in the U.S. as a result of this has affected members of the Derry population, which includes people from Arab, Palestinian, Muslim, Israeli, and Jewish backgrounds, causing significant feelings of unwelcomeness, distress, etc. And whereas Israelis rendering Gaza uninhabitable likely amounts to collective punishment under Article 33 of the Geneva Convention and to genocide under the UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and whereas the town of Derry hereby refuses to be complicit in or fund the ongoing genocide in Palestine in congruence with its values of anti-racism, anti-bigotry, and its respect for the inherent value of human life, and whereas the U.S. has provided at least $12.5 billion in aid to Israel's invasion of Palestine, including $19.5 million from New Hampshire alone, and an additional $1 billion exchanged between us and Israel since 1996, and whereas the town of Derry recognizes that while this international issue lies outside of its municipal scope of governance, it has had profound impacts on its residents, and whereas both New Hampshire's state and federally publicly elected representatives have failed to appropriately pressure Israel and end their genocidal campaign as implored to do so by our greater public through their calling for an immediate ceasefire, leaving both a moral and ethical obligation for local officials to address it, and whereas the town of Derry publicly condemns the atrocities occurring in Gaza by the hand of the U.S. and Israel, refuses to be complicit in the genocide and destruction of Palestine, and calls for an immediate and permanent ceasefire from all parties, including Israel, Hamas, and other groups. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we call on our state and federal representatives, including Jean Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Chris Pappas, our governor and president, to demand the immediate return of all hostages and political prisoners, the unrestricted provision of humanitarian aid to Gaza and the West Bank, the immediate divestment of New Hampshire and the U.S. from the Israeli government, and an immediate and enduring bilateral ceasefire between both parties, and the immediate end of the arms distribution by our representatives. Be it further resolved that we condemn Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, and hate, and be it further resolved that a copy of this ceasefire shall be sent to the aforementioned people. Yeah. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Sarah King. I live at Island Pond Road, and I'm here to speak in support of the Derry ceasefire resolution. I will start by outlining the situation in the Gaza Strip, which is under siege and attack. At least 40,000 are dead, including 15,000 children, 90,000 are injured, and 10,000 are missing. 80 to 90% of the population has been displaced, and 70% live under extreme food insecurity, and many have died from starvation. An average of 42 bombs are dropped every hour. There is no water or electricity due to the siege. Additionally, an estimated 2,000 Palestinians from Gaza and the occupied West Bank are being held as political prisoners in cruel conditions without trial or charge. As of June 8th, 120 Israelis were and still are held as hostages. All of these people should be able to return to their homes and families, and our resolution for a ceasefire is a critical step in accomplishing that. A ceasefire is urgently needed. Each death in Gaza and the occupied West Bank is preventable. The United States must remove its military support from Israel and provide suitable humanitarian aid to the innocents suffering in Gaza. The United States must stop abetting Israel's genocide. I do not use this word lightly, as, according to the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, Article 2, the IDF's actions clearly fit the criteria, including mass killing, mass harm, and the deliberate starvation of the population. And furthermore, under Article 3, Section E, the U.S. is guilty of complicity, if not support, of these acts. The massed murder of at least 40,000 Palestinians, the displacement and starvation of nearly 2 million, and the destruction of nearly all critical infrastructure, including hospitals and schools, cannot be ignored. Derry must act. Each small step we make on the municipal level is critical to our eventual success. In a democracy like the U.S., the will of the people is the ultimate decider of the action of the government, and resolutions like this are a way to show clearly to our representatives that a vast majority of Americans stand with us in supporting a ceasefire. Though this may seem small, in conjunction with the other ceasefire resolutions being passed across the state and country, it will make a difference. In New Hampshire alone, many other ceasefire resolutions, such as in Dover and Durham, which have passed theirs, and in Manchester and Nashua, that are in process. Each of these is a step towards affecting how our state and federal representatives vote and invest. American action, even American reluctance to assist Israel, will greatly shift the tides. Every bomb we refuse to pay for is a life saved. It is only because our representatives vote to send the IDF money and arms that they can continue its assault. We can stop this united. Regardless of our personal feelings on the matter, we can all agree that the mass loss of human lives is horrific. We can all agree that all parties want their families, held hostage or as prisoners, to come home. We can all agree that ending this violence is a critical step towards a peaceful and just future for both Israel and Palestine. Only through a ceasefire will these states be able to come to peace, and only through a ceasefire will the mass death of innocent Palestinian civilians end. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bradley Conway. I'm from Manchester. I'm here to support the residents from Derry who are here tonight advocating for the town to pass a ceasefire resolution in solidarity with Palestine. As you may be aware, all across the country for the last 8 to 9 months, residents have been appealing to their municipal governments to take action to stop the genocide. Global politics affect our local community in so many ways, and these campaigns are predicated on the idea that local communities acting together can affect global politics. One of the goals of these campaigns is to expose New Hampshire's racist, murderous federal representative delegation who cried loudly when 1,200 Israelis were killed on October 7th, but after 9 months of genocide in Gaza, they continue voting to arm Israel despite the arms deals being brazenly illegal under the Federal Arms Export Control Act. Derry's federal delegation, composed of Chris Pappas, Jean Shaheen, and Maggie Hassan, who are your colleagues, have fully backed and provided political cover for the U.S.-funded Israeli siege and mass murder campaign in Gaza, which has killed an estimated 186,000 people in Gaza. And our representatives have not shed a tear after displacing 80 to 90% of Gaza's 2.2 million civilians, not after 9 months of denying Gaza all access to food and clean water, sanitation, housing, health care, and education. They have no tears, while the UN reports that rape and torture is a standard operating procedure used to subdue more than 9,000 Palestinian prisoners currently held captive in Israeli prisons. They shed no tears as Israel has murdered more journalists and humanitarian aid workers and healthcare professionals than in any conflict recorded in recent history, and they did not even bat an eye. It's safe to say that Chris Pappas, Jean Shaheen, and Maggie Hassan never cared about innocent life that they proclaimed to in the days following October 7th. They only cared about lining their pockets with money from the Israeli lobby. They are still willing to greenlight the starvation and the torture of millions of people to get their way. These federal leaders may seem like regular people when you shake their hand, but I warn you to tremble what they have done to the people of Gaza. Now, obviously, we want peace, but personally, I don't want to. I would hope to see that Derry doesn't pass a peace resolution. We request that the town of Derry pass a strongly worded statement in solidarity with Palestine in an effort to join with the solidarity campaigns around the country, which acknowledge the humanity and the wildly disproportionate suffering inflicted upon Palestinians by our government. We also know that the town of Derry has investments, and it's likely that these investments can be moved around and reinvested in a way that could put economic pressure on Israel to stop the genocide and save lives. We request that the town disclose its investments for the purpose of eventually divesting from companies profiting from the genocide in Palestine. Is that... a single death is a tragedy, but 1 million deaths is a statistic. Please don't beat around the bush and publish something in solidarity with Palestine. Thank you so much.
Before we move on, I want to ask if the rest of the group, is there anybody that wants to speak on any other topic? Because we do have a time limit on public forum, so I want to see. And Richard, did you have anything you want to? I saw you start to get up before. I just wanted to make sure you had. If not, yeah.
I'd like to rebut, if I could.
Then it's still the same topic, so you can see where we fall in line, wherever you want to go. But yes, I just want to make sure if there's any other topics that actually pertain to business for the evening, that we do get to that before time's up.
Madam Chair, seeing none, rise online.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Tripp. I live at 44 Wyndham Road. I want to say thank you to these individuals for coming up and trying to stop the conflict in the Middle East. The only problem that I have is that I don't believe that, a unilateral ceasefire is the answer to what's going on over there. We have a situation where the reason there's conflict going on is because the Hamas invaded Israel, and as they said, there was a number of deaths that resulted from this. It seems that Hamas, thinking that they can attack and then, flee back into their into Gaza, is quite a interesting way of fighting a war. If you don't want people attacking you, then you shouldn't attack them. I would ask that the students and people here that if they want the war to end in Gaza, that they talk to Hamas and say, don't be continuing the attacks on Israel. That's the easiest way to stop a war. Don't fight. Thank you very much.
I already got up once, but I have to get up on this one. I guess I'm kind of lost for words on this one. I respect these young people that just came, these young adults that just came in here and gave us the information they gave us. And I respect Richard's opinion on the information that they gave us and what he thinks should be. But I just want everybody in this building to remember one thing. If it wasn't for those that gave their lives as veterans, none of us would have the opportunity to do any of this. Thank you.
Lisa Helgren, 75 Warner Hill Road. I'd like to also thank these young people for bringing this important issue locally. I think they made valid points when they said that when local communities unite, they can change the world, and it's the only thing that ever has. And I appreciate Mr. Tripp bringing up the fact that Hamas came out and attacked and then hid back within Gaza amongst women and children and innocent people. It's important to stop it. Our military is one of the best military powers in the entire world. And we have technology where we can find individuals and find people. And it may take us a little bit longer to get there, but we can certainly stop them in a way that is not killing innocent people. And our tax dollars should not be spent on bombs that wipe out entire neighborhoods with people that have no place to hide, and children that can't find their parents, and parents that can't find their children, and all of the atrocities that are happening over there. So I do hope you will consider that ceasefire and put pressure on our state to put pressure on our federal government to remove our support from that situation. Thank you.
Is there
Move to close.
Seeing none online, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have
Second, Mr. Cherichello's.
a motion to close.
Motion to
public
close.
forum, seconded by Council McEckern. On the motion, Council Cherichello?
Yes.
Council Webb?
Yes.
Flood?
Yes.
Council Granessi?
Yes.
Council McEckern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Public forum is closed. Thank you, everyone. All right, we're moving on to the consent agenda. We have items 24-61 to approve the minutes from June 18th, 2024, and 24-62, ordinance 2024-002 to amend the zoning ordinance, Article 7 floodplain development district. There will be a public hearing on that ordinance at our August 13th meeting. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve consent agenda and second on the motion, Council Cherichello?
Yes.
Council Webb?
Yes.
Council Flood?
Yeah.
I wasn't here last meeting.
Okay, do you want to do them separately, or do you want to just abstain?
It's the
from
minutes
consent
and
vote?
then that, it's the minutes and then the public hearing.
All right, so we can do the motions for both of them, so if we want, we can do separate motions, or you can abstain from.
So I agree on the public hearing.
What was that?
He agrees on the public hearing. Just wants to abstain from the minutes.
The motions on both. Yep, sorry, we're.
It's okay if you just.
If you want to, if you can abstain, and we'll go from there.
Yes.
Thank you. Council McEckern?
Yeah.
And chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Sorry, I made it more complicated than it has to be. All right, chair's report. We have tonight, one of our goals, as Mr. Karen will talk about, is that we wanted to kind of review tax exemptions and credits, and so we do have tonight just a workshop to get a presentation on that, so that the council can consider further, and we'll plan to bring a resolution likely in August on that. So I'll turn it over to Dave.
Okay, thank you. You have in your packet a pretty extensive report on the program, and Owen's going to load the PowerPoint here in a second, so we can walk through the different options which are available to the council. So again, one of your goals this year was to look at the exemption and credit programs, both as they impact veterans and as they impact our elderly as well. That was goal number 2. And the programs we looked at are the 3 major programs which are authorized by state statute. Standard Veterans Tax Credit, then the Service-Connected Total Discount offered by the town, which we have not focused on. One, as you are aware, is to preserve open space and manage farmland. They're a current use program, and there are currently about 5,000 acres in the community under that program. There were also discretionary easements on land use. We have 11 citizens receiving a blind exemption. The certified disabled veterans, we have 4 citizens, and that's where, again, they're totally and permanently disabled. There are other criteria, and also they were assisted in housing by the VA, and that is 100% exemption under state law. There were improvements to assist other disabled persons. We have 4 of those in the community. We also have 2 economic development exemption programs. First, the Community Tax Relief Incentive, which is predominantly focused on our downtown. That's an issue whereby if somebody rehabilitates an older building, the existing value prior to renovation remains in place for 5 years, and in year 6, it goes to fair market value on their assessments. And the second is the Commercial Industrial Construction Exemption. We have 2 of those in the community, and those can range up to 50% of the value for a period of 10 years. And the council has been guided by an informal formula which looks at both the value created and the jobs created in the community. Your recent council actions, the council looked at 2 of these programs in the last couple of years. The elderly exemption program, the assessment amounts were not changed. However, the increased income limits for both single and married were increased, which would allow either people to remain in the program if their value, if their assets or their income increases somewhat, or allows new applicants to become eligible. Also last year is that the council increased the veterans exemption by 10% to $550, and there's been no recent changes in the service-connected total disabled veterans program. How the programs work, they're very different. The elderly exemption is actually a value which is exempt, a value. So on 65 to 74, if you live in a modular home which has a value of $100,000 and you're eligible, the first $85,000 will be exempt, which means you'll be taxed on $15,000 of value. As you can see, state law establishes minimums. The only minimum in state law is that the exemption is going to be at least $5,000 for everyone. But state law does allow a graduated system like we have here in Derry, but they do dictate the age brackets, 65 to 74, 75 to 79, and 80 and older, and those cannot be adjusted by the council. On the veterans and the service-connected total disabled veterans, that is actually a portion of the tax bill is forgiven. So if your tax bill is $2,000 for a veteran, then your tax will be $1,450, and the service-connected total disability is actually at $2,000. It's not $2,200. These were adopted by the legislature based upon the state's taxing structure, whereby a vast majority of expenses for the town, the city, and the county are paid for through the property tax. So the legislature felt that these property tax circuit breakers would be appropriate to make sure we recognize one's ability to pay once either for a veteran or an elderly person. Currently, we have about 711 veterans receiving the standard credit. We have 79 receiving the service connected. And as you can see at the lower left-hand box, we have 198 residents receiving the elderly exemption. And you can see all that they're dispersed through those three different age categories. Now, one thing we try to look at to make sure that our exemptions are market relevant, and we do this also with our compensation packages on the 10 largest communities in New Hampshire. Derry is fourth. And we also look for the exemption and credit programs, the abutting towns, of which we have 8 communities that actually physically abut Derry, to see if our exemptions are competitive with our neighbors. And when we look at our Derry's ability to pay, we actually view that on 2 different criteria. One is the per capita income of Derry residents and the assessed value per capita. You will notice of those communities which abut Derry, Derry is 9th out of 9 communities, both for assessed value per capita and per capita income, which lends itself to Derry folks have to work harder in order to pay taxes and to sustain these programs. Looking at the 10 largest communities, we are not last, but we're close to it. We're 7th both in per capita income and the assessed value per capita. We only have Concord, Manchester, and Rochester, which are below us. So it points to the relative age of the community, and that we do have a lot of workforce housing. We also have a lot of older houses, given our history of being a factory town with a lot of construction built around those factories in the typical New England mill town configuration. So that lends itself to a lower assessed value per capita. Now, just to give you a historical perspective, and one reason I think the council want to look at it is, you know, these programs have been losing their quote-unquote buying power given the increase in assessments for the past 4 or 5 years. If you look back at the town's investment to these programs in 2019 was about $1.3 million, which equaled 1.5% of our tax effort. And you fast forward to 2023, which is the year we have the most recent figures available, that effort has decreased a little over 1% of our tax effort, and about a little over $1 million in exemptions or credits granted. Now we look at the elderly exemption comparisons, and you can see our assessed valuation. You also can see the different exemptions amount, and the percentages are essentially the percentage of the exemption compared to the assessed value per capita. And if you look at the bottom, there's a medium assessed value per capita, so you can see is that we are somewhat comparable to our neighboring communities which abut us as far as median, although the actual numbers are lower, and that's probably driven by our lower assessed value per capita. Now, the takeaway in this program is that, again, it requires more efforts to fund these programs. The exemptions are generally lower in Derry, and we keep hearing that the statewide population estimates forecast doubling of senior population in about 11 years, which will definitely impact this program as more folks become eligible to participate. If you look at the veterans credit comparison, again, we offer $550 per veteran. That is a median for the abutting communities and above median for the 10 largest communities. Interesting to note is that Derry and Rochester are the only two communities which do not provide a credit for the all veterans credit. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few slides. So again, it requires more effort to fund these programs. We're one of two communities that do not offer the all veterans credit. And although our veterans credit of $500 is below the median and the average, but it is comparable with the 10 largest communities. Now, the all veterans credit was established a handful of years ago, and our current program for standard veterans, you have to serve during periods of conflict as established during state statute. The all veterans credit is available to any veteran who has served at least 6 months, has been honorably discharged. But the word of note is, and we'll get into the display in the next slide, is that you cannot establish a different level of credit for the all veterans as opposed to standard for a long period of time. You have 3 years to make sure that both those levels are equal. You know, we use a formula, again, we'll show on your next slide, which is from some objective data. But if you want to go back for a minute to the previous next, the experience of the people in the survey, it shows that only about 12 to 13% of the number of veterans in the wartime program receive the all vets credit. So in other words, under other communities' experiences, with our approximately 700 veterans, we can expect, under their experience, about 90 all vets to receive it. However, if you go to the next slide, thanks, Owen, we use this formula to look at the maximum exposure, of which you look at the population, you subtract out the other 20 population, that brings you to a probable veteran age eligible number of 27,000 people. Then we look at information from the Veterans Data Center, which tells us that there's 8.26% of the age eligible population in Rockingham County are veterans, and of that amount, 80% own homes. That all translates into a possible total veteran census of 1,787 in town. 711 are already receiving the credit, so there's a potential for almost 1,100 new veterans. And that is really different from what the experience has been in other communities. But just a word of caution is if you decided to adopt the all veterans credit and phase that in over 3 years, and if these numbers hold true, your fiscal impact in year one is $200,000. And to put that into perspective, that is typically between a third and a quarter of all funds available to the entire organization or a tax cap to address all increases in costs as you consider your next fiscal year budget. So again, if the council is going to consider the credit, you've got to use a lot of caution with more study, because if you make a decision whereby you're expecting 100 people to be eligible and 1,000 are, that's an impact of several $100,000. That, from my perspective, needs more study. So fiscal capacity is that every year we build our budget, we plan on $20 million in new construction. We have the value, the income from that, and the income from the change in the consumer price index, and that's the base of which you can fund next year's budget. We actually this year had $20 million in new construction, so we have available revenues approaching about $60,000 if the council wants to restore the buying power of these two programs. Oops. And again, in the extensive report you have a copy of on pages 19 and 24, there's a number of different options. You can focus on one of the 3 programs only. You can allocate the proceeds equally to the 3 programs. You can allocate the revenues to the 2 veterans program. You can provide a flat relief of $25, $50, or if you equally distribute the available funds, that'll be just under $61. You can allocate the funds to each program based upon the number of recipients. And the final one, which I think would deserve your consideration, is to allocate funds to each program based on each number of recipients in each. Recognize that the council increased the standard vets last year by 10%, thus focuses on a 5% increase in the exempt assessed value for elderly, and to match the standard vet increase for the service connected with a 10% increase. And the cost impact of those options range from $25,625, which is a $25 per recipient option, to $60,000 for a number of options. The final option we just talked about would cost under the current census about $45,000. And just to remind the council, the state of New Hampshire sets our tax rate. To do that, they need what they call the MS forms. Those are due by September 1st. So if the council is going to adjust these for this year, then a decision needs to be made at your next council meeting. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Are there any questions? Councilor Churchill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple of questions. The number on the elderly exemption, do you know how long ago those were established? I know those, the town sets those, right? I know the age category is the state, but what's the dollar amount is basically the town. So I just want to know if you had an idea of when those were set.
Well, from my recall, have not been adjusted since I've been here, and I've been here since 2016. So it's been at least 7 or 8 years.
Okay. And then the other question I had, I did some research and I looked at Londonderry for the all veterans. It looks like they have 101 all vets. I know you showed a category of a possibility of 1,000, but when I look at Salem's number and I look at Londonderry's number, I don't see that huge number.
That's correct. And if you notice, if you remember one of the slides, is that other communities' experience show that the all vet recipients is typically between 12 and 13% of the number of vets receiving the wartime service credit. So that's where the disparity comes in, whereby the objective formula we've looked at and other communities have used is vastly different from other communities' experiences. So if you rely upon other communities' experiences, then the implementation of that program is a lot more manageable. But if we're incorrect, and a vast majority of what we think the age-eligible veterans would, I mean, the delta for those, again, is $700,000.
Do you mind if I continue?
No.
I just had a couple. The other thing I noticed, and it's hard to calculate, I get it. So the wartime vets, we had, you said 71.
The wartime vets, we have 711.
I mean, 711. I apologize, 711. The big question mark is that number probably goes down over time.
Oh, definitely will.
So, you know, that money is not going to be something that grows in perpetuity. You know, it's gonna flux over time. So, you know, that's a concern that I have.
Well, one suggestion that Councilor McEachern made in our discussions is that you establish a baseline. Once you get to the level you want to get to, establish that as a baseline appropriation. So therefore, if you do lose any veterans off the rolls, then you raise the same amount of money by increasing the level. Now, to give you an example, last year, the number of eligible veterans under the wartime program went from 731 to 711, so it went down by 20.
Right.
However, the service-connected total disability, which is a $2,000 credit, went from 71 to 79. Yeah. So overall, there's not only excess this year, in fact, the cost of the program went up slightly.
Okay. And I'm not doing it for advertising. Please don't think so. But I sell real estate for a living. So, you know, one of the issues that are going on in this state are twofold. people that are on fixed incomes are getting squeezed, okay? And it's happening more and more, and they're struggling. That's number one. Number two, the younger generation can't afford the houses to live here. And over the last, at least the last 4 years, looking at the inflationary numbers were really high. And people are struggling, and you know, we got to recognize that. So I appreciate all the numbers that you've looked at. I still think that our veterans need some help. Our elderly need some help as well. And it's probably the right thing to do. Now, keep in mind, obviously, it's a swing, right? Because the rest of the categories have to pick that up. And I do have concerns. When we're looking at housing costs at $900,000, I can't afford a $900,000 house. I don't know if anyone here can. That's a lot of money. And so they are selling, which is good, but the fact of the matter is we've got a lot of people in this town that have been here for a long time, and I feel horrible that we're squeezing, you know, those two categories. But so I agree, we need to do something. I'll probably have to do some more research on it, but you know, for the veterans, we're 550. We're almost there at the top 750.
750, that's correct.
Yeah, I would probably want to do that, and get that done, and then look at, I won't be here, unfortunately, but I think it's a multi-tier type thing, multi-year. Just pick something. You know, the veterans keep coming up year after year and asking us, and we're kind of throwing 25 or 50 bucks at them. I think it's the right time to 750 that up. And then I would like to see, you mentioned that we should really study the all vets. I think we should. And see where, you know, how we can help them as well. It's unfortunate that we can't do a smaller amount. It has to be the exact amount, so.
Over a 3-year period.
Okay, so we can phase in. Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate all the hard work that you've put in, and that's all the questions I have.
Can I ask for clarification? I might have misunderstood Councilor Churchill's question, but you had said something hadn't been adjusted in the 7 or 8 years you'd been here. Was that the elderly exemption?
So the assessed value number for the elderly exemption, like, let me.
Right, but that's the 45,000, 55,000?
Not the income.
Oh, not the income, okay, sorry.
The assessed value. So you're taking off $65,000. Well, and you know, here's the thing: the people that have been here in town for many years.
That's an
the Godfather's theme or what?
interesting ring.
You know, here's the thing.
I'm gonna give you that.
Here's the thing. I mentioned people on fixed income. I mentioned the young people, right? That's great. I've been in my house for many years, and I have equity because I've been here for many times. That's great, but we're paying more taxes. Equity is paper. It's not money that I have, you know? And so the people that have the equity, great, but you're still paying higher taxes. So it's getting tough, and it's getting tougher. And, you know, it seems to me that, you know, we owe our veterans and our elderly who've paid taxes for year over year, you know, a little bit of break. I'm willing to pay a little extra for that. But it's tough. Does that make sense with the assessed value?
Yeah, I just thought you had mentioned, I'm like, didn't we just do that?
Yeah, so instead of,
now I understood
what's the
what you're
first
saying, though.
layer,
Yep.
85,000? If I roll that back 5 years and the inflation was 17%, okay, let's think about increasing that number 17%, just to keep with inflation.
Yep. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Webb.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that if we act on this by our August meeting, that'll be part of the tax cap for this year.
That's correct.
And philosophically, I want to thank Dave Karen and the staff for putting this report together. It was quite informative. You know, one of the problems with the tax cap community is that we can only do micro enhancements on our budget. And because we're constrained by that, philosophically, I believe that we should look at a group that we can help the most, such as the disabled veterans, help them to the best of our capacity, maybe the full $60,000. And then as time comes, when we bring them up to the legal level, then we could look at changing exemptions in other areas. But I'd rather have a real impact on a group that is both disabled, and many of whom are elderly, than have just little pieces sent to everyone. Even though it doesn't really go into this argument, just a reminder is to look at housing as a whole, because both veterans and elderly, we have many who live in this community who are renters. They may be voters as well. And it's something through housing that I think we should just keep in the back of our minds, how that we can help those groups as well. Thank you.
Anything from this end? All right. So we will continue the conversation. We will plan to bring a resolution to the August 13th meeting. I know Councilor Foote as well was wanted to see all these numbers, and so he'll be able to take a look at those and ask any questions as well, and we will go from there. So thank you very much for all of that work and putting that report together, and for putting so many options for us to consider together. I think that is helpful to compare them. Right, I did not have anything else under Chair's report, so I will leave it with you, Dave, for the Town Administrator's report.
Okay, thank you. Police Chief Fioli is back with a discussion about a different kind of dog, looking at a comfort program, which we manage through the police department. Chief?
No poodles.
Thank
Could be a poodle.
Yeah.
you. Poodles, I got it.
This yellow lab.
Thank you, councilors. I appear this evening to, with me is Captain Dave Michaud. We appear this evening to seek your concurrence on a new, embarking upon and implementing a new program within the Derry Police Department. I want to stress, though, that this program will take about 10 months to unfold. I am not seeking any money or supplemental appropriations in the FY25 budget that we just adopted, and we're 16 days into as we speak. I think any cost that might be incurred in this fiscal year can easily be absorbed in my current appropriation, so I seek no extra funding. What we do want to do is implement a comfort dog program within the Derry Police Department. Those programs have become increasingly popular in communities all around us. I talked to one police chief today in southern New Hampshire who a few years ago was not a believer in the program, thought it was a waste of money. He saw one interaction where there was a medical event at the town hall, and unfortunately it was a fatal medical event of one of the town hall employees. The very next day, their comfort dog was in the finance department, and 7 employees were on the floor with the comfort dog, working through the emotions and the event of the day before. And so he became an instant believer. He said it's well worth every penny that the town spends for that program as a result of that one incident. So that's a real life example of how it helped in a neighboring community. We hope that this program will allow the agency to provide positive interactions during investigations involving children or adults to reduce anxiety and increase communication. These dogs break down, they've been proven to break down communication barriers and allow people to open up and talk where they normally wouldn't. Provides comfort for people during times of crisis, provides aid and comfort to individuals in the community impacted by violence, tragedy, and traumatic events. We have current staff. I'm not looking for any additional staffing for this program. I have staff within our complement of officers now that will be assigned to this task. There will be a primary handler and a secondary handler assigned. It's not like a canine patrol dog that you just saw. There's a single handler. That's not how the comfort dog programs work. We've been in contact with an organization called Hero Pups. They're out of Exeter, New Hampshire. Hero Pups provides dogs in 2 tracks. One track is to provide dogs for veterans, service dogs, and the other is to provide comfort dogs to municipalities. They take their time in assessing their dogs that they have in their care, and they usually take them from babies. We've been in touch with them. They have some dogs presently that are about the 11-week mark, 12-week mark now, and they are still evaluating those dogs. Usually around 12 to 16 weeks, they will come to a decision as to what path that dog will follow, whether it will be a service dog or a comfort dog, and then they will seek to assign those dogs to certain municipalities. So I have my oars in the water on that. Should you approve that, this program this evening, or the concept of it, I will further that outreach and hopefully have one of those dogs assigned as a Derry comfort dog. Now, it's an interesting program. They train the dog and they train the handler. The handler goes to their facility, could be once a month, could be twice a month, could be once a week. Totally dependent on our schedule and how we want to manage that. And it's usually for a very short time, an hour, 2 hours at a time, because that's all the dogs can work for training when they're that young. The dogs will come to Derry when we have a public event or we have a need to have a dog come to us with a handler, and until that dog is about 10 months old, it won't be assigned here and dedicated to us full-time. So the dog will come to an event in Derry, and then at the end of that event, the handler will take it back to Exeter, where it will be further trained. So we don't expect that we're going to see full control and ownership of the animal until 8 to 10 months from now. We'll be pretty near our next budget. Now, I want to be forthright with you. There are some costs associated that are over and above what we do today, and that is personnel costs. Just like the Canine Patrol Program, where we have to pay by FLSA standards overtime to the officer for feed and care and maintenance of the dog, we would have to do the same thing. This is a town of Derry property, and it will eventually be going home with a handler every day, and that handler will be responsible for feed, care, maintenance. So those same FLSA standards that regulate feed and overtime for patrol dog would apply to this dog as well. So there are some overtime costs that in future budgets I will prepare a request for should we go down this road. As I said, we've been working with Hero Pups out of Exeter, and I expect that if you approve the program, we'll continue that discussion with them. I have a policy all written. It's being staffed presently, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have with respect to the implementation of the program.
Questions?
Brian had his hand up first, then I'll
All
go.
right, Councilor Turchello?
You want to go? Do you have a
Sure, you
question?
can go.
Okay. All right, thanks, Chief. I appreciate it. I don't have a problem with the comfort dog, but I do want to ask you a question, because I ran across this at the county level. We did get a police dog for the sheriff a few years back, and then we actually got a second request because the dog was pretty much working quite a lot.
Is that a comfort dog you're referring to?
No, we don't have a comfort dog. My question to you is, you know, because of the size of our community, we got the police dog, which is great. I'm wondering if, you know, one of the reasons why we got 2 dogs at the sheriff's department is so we could have access 24/7.
Right.
Right? And so where I'm going with this is, would it be better if we got a second police dog before the comfort dog?
Well, you're on the right track. I did request in my FY25 request funding for a second canine patrol dog.
Okay.
That was, in fact, approved for January 1st coming up.
Okay.
So this January, I will embark upon a second canine working dog.
Okay, so then we have access 24/7. We have
Yes.
resting. Yeah, okay. All
With
right.
patrol coverage, looking for patrol coverage 16 hours a day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question about Canine Officer Latios. Just curious, mutual aid, we go call anybody who would ask, you guys would do mutual aid with them, correct?
Yes,
That's awesome.
that is a big part of the program, actually.
Yep, I just want to make sure. Comfort dog, I'm all for that. I think it's a great, I said, we got the first canine, got the second canine, comfort dog. Comfort dog's great. We actually got one in my old job, and I actually use it for a horrific event, and it opened me up. And it's better than talking to EAP, because like I sat there and talked to the dog, and they just listen, and they comfort, and they lick you, and they roll over, and it's just really, it straightened me out. So I'm all for comfort dogs. I think it's a great thing. I think it'd be a great tool for Derry.
Thank you.
So I know there's no fiscal impact at this time. Care and feeding of the dog makes sense, and you'll roll it into the next year budget along with the second canine. But the program itself, you guys are looking for funding from organizations to help the upfront costs?
So,
Do we have any idea?
good question.
Do we have any idea how much that would be?
At the end of the training period, when the dog is going to be assigned to the town of Derry, there is an expected cost of around $7,500 to be reimbursed or to be paid to Hero Pups.
Okay.
There are organizations out there that cover those costs, corporate entities that cover those costs. I've already been in touch with one such corporate entity about sponsoring a program for the town of Derry. I'm assured that that is probably going to happen. I don't want to give you the name of the entity right now, because if their budgeting doesn't come through, then
Right.
they might have a little leg in their face. I don't want to do that to them.
Yeah. No, but that's a reasonable cost too for the training. That's not a.
Well,
that's not
all the
a-
medical costs is too. For the first year, just about, the dog is in the care and goes through the neutering, spaying, whatever medical care is required for the first year. Hero Pups pays all that.
Yeah.
So they need to
And it's
recover
a-
some of that cost.
Yeah, that's clearly a reasonable cost for that. And obviously, the program, obviously based on your experiences, and I rely on people like Dave, who's spent his career in law enforcement, to give me that feedback. And we have Aaron here, who works in the field, as well as Charlie, so I'm all for it. You need an informal poll, so Jack asked a question.
Hold on 1 second. Are you okay? Okay, I didn't know if you need to interrupt. Yes, sorry.
Just a quick question. Will the comfort dog be living at the police station, or will he be going, or he or she be going home with it?
Once the dog is assigned full-time to the police department and is owned by the town of Derry, it becomes a task for the handler to take back and forth and bring home every night. So it lives with the handler.
Sounds good.
In the handler's family.
Not you, Jack.
I was going to ask, can a town councilor be the handler? I think I want this job. Dave, did you have?
Yeah, just for process, what we're looking for this evening is the council's comfort level. And as we progress and the chief can identify a sponsor, then we'll go through the public hearing process for the receipt of unanticipated revenues. So that's the timeline moving forward.
Well, unofficial poll. Yes.
I'm 100% in support of pursuing this.
Yeah, and I have one quick question too. You'll bring the comfort dog through the schools too?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
I think you have
Absolutely.
consensus to move forward, yeah.
Can I ask one other question?
Okay.
You may ask, yeah, I know.
Thank you for your
unofficially.
Does it need to be official at all, Dave?
There's one more question from.
One other
Council-
question.
We'll go for the
I know I
hearing
ran into
later.
Officer Kennedy Tuesday night, and I was asking about the vest.
Yes.
We gotta get vest for Latios. I'm sure that someone's already volunteered to donate a vest for him, because.
I haven't heard of someone volunteering to donate a vest. I have received some donations, cash donations recently for that purpose. I haven't got quite enough yet.
I only know because I was talking about it and I saw it on social media. Someone
Sure.
was there, and I know there's programs out there because, that'd be like my first, make sure we get him that.
How much does a vest
ballistic
cost?
vest and stab vest and.
There are efforts underway to both fund that and purchase it.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
How much does a vest cost?
Believe it or not, more than the vest for police officers. They're about
Oh.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
both very much. We look forward
Okay.
to coming back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the unofficial visit.
Exactly. All right, moving on to new business. We have 3 resolutions. So the first one is item 2463, Resolution 2024-038, to transfer unexpended appropriations to the CBA Implementation Trust. Mark Fleischer is presenting.
Good evening. So, when we prepared the FY 2025 budget, the Teamsters health rates administered by Allegiant Healthcare were not available. As per contract, we used the maximum allowable increase of 8% over the FY 2024 rates. In May, after the budget was adopted, the actual FY 2025 rates were issued with only a 2% increase. Using the 2% increase yielded a total of $45,262 in unexpended appropriations for FY 2025. The allocation of the $45,262 is $1,606 from police, $30,662 from public works, $580 from DCC TIF, $1,545 from the Gateway TIF, $6,978 from water, $3,891 from wastewater. As we've done in the past, we'd like to transfer these funds to the Collective Bargaining Agreement Implementation Trust, which is also known as the CBA Implementation Trust, for future CBA obligations. The balance at 6/30/24 in that fund was $1,494,170.18. Any questions?
So any particular reason we don't want to put it in the unexpended fund balance instead?
We've used this in the past with the CBA Implementation Trust. We know what the fixed costs are for our labor contracts. One thing we don't know is the amount of health insurance increases every year, so.
This goes into the fund to help any so similar to what we used to do years ago with other funds, like even the snow. If we didn't spend it, it stayed there and we.
That's the next resolution coming
Yeah,
up.
I know, because that's what we like to do with that. Cool, all right, no problem. That's the only question I had. I'm all set to read if anybody wants to read. Resolution 2024-38 to transfer unexpended appropriations to the CBA Implementation Trust. Whereas Section 9(7) of the Derry Town Charter authorizes the town administrator with approval of the majority of the town council to transfer any unencumbered appropriation balances. And whereas the town partners with Agilent Healthcare to provide health insurance coverage to its employees, and whereas fiscal 24 budgeted healthcare premiums from Agilent exceeded the amount necessary to provide coverage, and whereas the town council pursuant to resolution 2017-38 created the CBA Implementation Expendable Trust Fund to assist in funding current or future obligations of collective bargaining, now therefore be it resolved in council that the town administrator is hereby authorized to transfer $45,262 from the following departments to the CBA Implementation Expendable Trust Fund. Public Works, $30,622, Police, $1,606, DCC TIF, $580, Gateway TIF, $1,545, Water Fund, $6,978, Wastewater Fund, $3,891. Resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Second.
By Councilor McEachern, second by Councilor Chercello. On the motion, Councilor Chercello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Gannessi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
And chair votes yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Before we move on to the next one, I realized, Dave, you didn't get to finish your whole TA report. Did you have other things you wanted to say from the stuff that you
Well,
said?
one thing I wanted to commend Mark and his team at finance is that for the 26th consecutive year, the town was recognized for its excellent financial reporting. And that really points to the financial transparency of our documents, so congratulations to Mark and his team.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mark.
Appreciate it. Much appreciated.
Thank you, thank you.
I'd like to establish a penalty for any cell phones that go off during a council meeting.
Second.
All right. Are we good then, Dave, to move on? You don't have anything else?
We're good.
All right, so then next under new business is item 2464, resolution 2024-039 to transfer funds in the FY24 budget Town Administrator Dave Karen presenting.
Thank you. About this time every year, we return to the council seeking authorization under the town charter to transfer appropriation from one group to another. We have two for the council's consideration this evening. First, as Councilman McEachern just mentioned, the town established a winter snow and ice removal fund many years ago. And it's very helpful when we have a very severe winter. This year, except I think for 1 week in March, it was a pretty mild winter. So our Director of Public Works looked at his budget and is recommending that we use about $125,000 in unexpended appropriations and transfer it to that fund. That will bring the fund up to about $350,000. Last couple of years, the budget's been close, and what we end up doing is we end up doing a little bit less road work to make the bottom line work. But this year, while we have a good-sized amount of unexpended appropriation in that account, we felt it was appropriate to bring it forward for a transfer. The second one is that the fire department budget, Chief Haggard was very diligent with his department budget. In fact, at the last month of the fiscal year, we authorized some projects that were budgeted and reviewed by the council during the FY24 process, but he hadn't yet implemented because, he was getting used to the budget. We have a lot of vacancies. Our overtime was very high this year because of those vacancies. That's sort of balanced off, but we had some unexpended appropriations in health as well. So what we'd like to do is we think we're going to have about $240,000 remaining in his budget, and we'd like to keep that within the fire department by transferring it to the Fire Station Capital Project Fund. It's definitely a challenging time to build buildings this year, but under our charter is that we have the fiscal capacity to build them when the CPI is high, which means inflation is high as well. So what we'd like to do is request council transfer of up to $240,000 to the Fire Station Capital Project Fund. That'll go towards the contingency account, and we're trying to build that up to be between 4 and 5% of the contracts remaining for the project. So we appreciate the council's consideration of those two items on the resolution 2024-039.
Questions?
Just a quick comment. I think it's a good idea. Fortunately, the last 2 winters have been pretty mild. But being an old timer here, I've seen where snow budgets have been crushed in some years because we had a ton of snow. Also, if you can let the higher power know not to snow on a Saturday or Sunday, we'd be all set, I think. But other than that, I think it's a good idea.
Anything else?
There are no other questions, Madam Chair, I'll read, because obviously it looks like there's concurrence, and these are good programs and good things to do. So, Resolution 2024-39 to transfer funds for the FY24 budget. Whereas Section 9.7 of the Town Charter empowers the Town Council to transfer any unencumbered appropriation balance, and whereas FY24 budget concluded with unexpended appropriations, and whereas a transfer from some of these appropriations to other projects or reserve funds would further implement Town Council goals and is supported by long-term financial planning, now therefore be it resolved in Council that the Town Administrator is authorized to transfer the following amounts. From Highway Department operating to, from Fire Department operating to Fire Department capital improvement, up to $240,000. From Highway Division operating to winter maintenance, $150,000. Resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilor McEachern, second by Councilor Cherichello. On the motion, Councilor Cherichello?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
Yes.
Councilor Flood?
Yes.
Councilor Granessi?
Yes.
Councilor McEachern?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 6-0. All right, and last but not least, item 2465, resolution 2024-040 to fund expenses from the compensated absences capital reserve fund. Mark Fleischer presenting.
Okay.
He's back.
During the FY 2024, the town processed earned time payouts due to employee separations and earned time pay per contract totaling $1,028,355, roll-ups included. The FY 2024 other municipal obligation budget included $400,690 with roll-ups for such pay. The difference between the budget and the actual amounts total actual months paid equals $627,665. As we have for the past several years, we request transferring $627,665 from the compensated absences capital reserve fund to other municipal obligations to cover these payments, which will offset account 190004 and associated roll-ups. The balance of the compensated absences capital reserve after this transfer will be $1,090,688. As a reminder, the FY 2025 budget does include a $675,000 transfer into that fund. Questions?
Any questions?
No, just
Okay.
seeing that there are no questions, I will dive into this resolution. Resolution 2024-040, to fund expenses from the compensated absences capital reserve fund. Whereas the town council created a compensated absence capital reserve fund in 1997, and whereas the purpose of the fund is to pay the town's obligations to its employees for vested accumulated leave upon separation and for earned time payouts in excess of budget, and whereas several long-tenured employees retired in 2024, and whereas transfer of funds from compensated absence capital reserve fund will stabilize the impact of end-of-service payments on the town's general fund, now therefore be it resolved in council that the town council, as agents to expend, hereby authorize the withdrawal of $627,665 from the compensated absence capital reserve fund to fund accumulated leave obligations. Resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Councilor McEachern, seconded by Councilor Chiricello. On the motion, Councilor Chiricello.
Yes.
Speak. Councilor Webb.
Yes.
Councilor Flood.
Yes.
Councilor Ganesi.
Yes.
Councilor McEachern.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right. Are there any councilor comments or liaison reports?
You can file that back in your filing cabinet right now, can't you?
Councilor Webb.
Okay, just a couple minutes. Since it'll be in the record, I just want to announce that a man who had a tremendous impact regionally and in Derry, even though he never lived in town, passed away last week. His name was Dr. Joseph Sabato, and he impacted this town in 3 important ways. From 1986 to the mid-2000s, he was the emergency department director at Parkland Medical Center. And did a variety of other corporate roles for them. But in that role, he mentored paramedics all the way from Auburn to the state line, Pelham, Hudson, and Nashua, all across the state. He was very active in developing the protocols that we practice under, and really pushed us to improve what we did and to adopt new procedures. He was a mentor to many of us. That was one way he had a tremendous impact, because one of the things he did with us mentoring was to have us look at the culture of EMS. And particularly apparent in the second way he had impact, which was in 1994 and 95, 11 teenagers in the town of Derry were killed in motor vehicle accidents. It was a very bad time. People like myself says, oh, it's just one of those things. Dr. Sabato did not believe that, and he looked at it from a public health issue. And one of the things he did was found the Derry Community Alliance for Teen Safety, CATS. He pushed for changes in laws at the state legislature, including changing the seatbelt age from 12 to 18. And again, lasting impact. Katz is still a part of this community, even though he never lived here. He moved to Florida, where he became a associate professor of medicine at Jacksonville, Florida. And even though he was all the way down in Florida, and eventually he came back to become a professor of medicine at UMass in 2016, he had another real impact on the health and safety of this community and our culture. He was a mentor to Chuck Hemian, who was the EMS director for the fire department. And one of the things he mentored was community CPR. And one of the reasons why Derry is a heart-safe community is Joe Sabato. It's something that he pushed in Florida, and he pushed in Mass. He changed how, before I retired, how we did CPR and did cardiac arrest in the field for a very positive way. Again, it was a cultural change, and those are the changes that last. So, thank you to my mentor, Joe Sabato, and condolences to his wife, Joyce, and his family.
Thank you. That was quite a tribute. Thank you.
Wow.
Yes, Councilor Ganassi?
Thank you. I just want to report on, so on the planning board, is really just moving forward. I guess there's a bunch of lot lines tomorrow night at the meeting. They're going to be looking at some of the zoning downtown and around in the fall. And I've been to the last couple of school board meetings, and on July 23rd, there's a fiscal advisory workshop. What time is that, Brenda? I didn't see that. Facilities? I thought they were doing a fiscal. Oh, facilities? July 23rd? Yeah, Dave, Chairman Clapp was, one of the end of the meetings, he was telling me that, so. And then hopefully we'll have I told him, come to the legislative committee meeting after that. Hopefully we'll have one scheduled beginning of August. So I want to talk about what to do for warrant articles. So I just want to report on that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep, Councilor Flood?
On July 27th, Saturday, we'll be having our big community event. This year, we're moving it from the Boys and Girls Club to Pinkerton Academy. We outgrew the Boys and Girls Club parking lot, and so we're moving it up there, and there's something for everyone. It's all day, and you bring little kids, you bring your grandparents. The Taylor Library will be there with crafts for kids. There'll be music, there'll be food trucks, there'll be games for teenagers to play, and it's free, and if you're watching, you're invited.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I've had the opportunity to speak in front of other communities, and I'm very proud of the fact that we in the town of Derry, I tell people that we've had probably one of the first tax caps in the state. I think we've had one since 1993, I believe. And I've always told people that I like the tax cap because it forces you to make tough decisions. And as long as I've been affiliated here, which is going on 18 years, 6 terms, we've never gone over the tax cap. But as I mentioned earlier on the veterans credits and the elderly exemption, I think we need to do something. And we've talked about this tax cap. This is one area that I would make an exception. I consider myself very fiscally conservative, but this is one area where I think we need to make that adjustment. And if we go over a little bit, we go over a little bit. But I just wanted to make mention that I think it's time we do something. But thank you.
Thank you. All right. Before we adjourn, I do just want to remind everyone that we're a little off schedule with the summer, so our next meeting will be August 13th, right here, same time, same place, but August 13th next month.
We'll make a motion to adjourn if that's it.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Everybody seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Stay dry as you can.